She was 7 months pregnant when she discovered her husband had been living a double life. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was what she found hidden in his emails at 2 in the morning. A patent filing for her invention. 7 years of her work, her algorithm,
I am so
her
sorry,
future,
but you have to see
filed
this.
under his name. He was going to sell it for $100 million.
Who is that with Garrett?
And she was supposed to sign divorce papers and walk away with pocket change, never knowing what he had stolen. Her husband called her boring. He called her furniture.
These
He
are the
said she
terms of
used
the
to be
custody agreement,
interesting,
Caroline.
but now she was
I
just
suggest you
something
sign
that
them.
took up space.
How could
He
you
made
do
one
this,
mistake.
Helen?
He underestimated her. 3 months later, she walked into the company gala on the arm of a billionaire. Her husband froze. His mistress panicked. And every single person in that room watched as the woman he threw away became the woman who destroyed him. But here is the part no one saw coming, the twist that changed everything. The betrayal that came from the last person she ever expected. This is the story of Caroline Mitchell, the woman who lost everything. The woman who discovered her own mother had signed papers to take her baby away. The woman who stood up when the whole world told her to stay down. And the woman who proved that the quietest person in the room is often the most dangerous. Stay until the end, because the final 15 minutes of this story will leave you speechless. This is what happens when you underestimate a pregnant woman with nothing left to lose. The air in the Windsor Grand Hotel ballroom did not just shimmer with elegance. It cackled with raw, naked ambition. Crystal chandeliers cast diamonds of light across a sea of tuxedos and designer gowns. Champagne flowed like water, and the scent of expensive perfume mingled with the sharp tang of corporate competition. This was the kind of room where fortunes were made and reputations were destroyed, often in the same conversation. Caroline Mitchell stood at the entrance, her hand resting protectively on her belly, 7 months pregnant, wearing a midnight blue gown that made her feel like a warrior queen instead of the broken woman she had been just 3 months ago. Her heart hammered against her ribs so hard she was certain the baby could feel it, but her face betrayed nothing. She had learned to hide her fear. She had learned to turn her pain into armor. Across the room, her husband Garrett froze mid-laugh. His champagne glass stopped halfway to his lips, suspended in the air like time itself had stuttered. Beside him, his 24-year-old mistress Brittany clung to his arm in a red dress that left little to the imagination. The same red dress, the same possessive grip, the same woman who had texted Caroline's husband that she was boring and sad. But Caroline was not looking at them, not yet. She was looking at the man walking toward her. Donovan Knight, the most powerful billionaire in the city. A man whose net worth had more zeros than Garrett's entire department earned in a decade. He extended his hand with a smile that made every woman in the room catch her breath and every man straighten their posture. 3 months ago, Caroline had been crying on her bathroom floor, 6 months pregnant, counting the tiles through her tears. 47 tiles. Miles. She counted them twice because the first time her hands were shaking too hard to keep track. She had wondered if she would survive. She had wondered if she even wanted to. Tonight she was about to teach her husband what happens when you underestimate a woman with nothing left to lose. But to understand how she got here, we need to go back to the beginning. Back to the morning when her perfect life shattered into a million pieces. Back to the moment she discovered that the man she had given everything to had been building a whole other life behind her back. 3 months earlier, Carolyn woke alone. Again. The other side of the bed was cold, untouched. The pillow still held the indent of her husband's head from 2 nights ago, the last time he had bothered to come home before midnight. She was 34 weeks pregnant, exhausted from carrying both a baby and a marriage that had become heavier than she ever imagined. Her back ached constantly. Her feet were swollen. And every morning she woke up wondering when her husband had stopped loving her, or if he ever really had. She had given up everything for this life. Her promising career in software engineering, her independence, her sense of self, her dreams. For 12 years, she had supported Garrett's climb up the corporate ladder, managing their home, hosting his dinner parties, proofreading his presentations at 2 in the morning, rubbing his shoulders after hard days, telling him he was brilliant even when he was not. She thought she was building their future together. She thought she was investing in a partnership. She was really just building his exit ramp. Carolyn walked past her home office on the way to the kitchen. A whiteboard covered in complex algorithms caught the morning light. Her passion project, the Mitchell-Larsen quantum encryption protocol. 7 years of work that Garrett dismissed as her cute little hobby. 7 years of late nights and breakthrough moments and quiet pride in something that was entirely her own. "That is nice, honey," he would say whenever she tried to explain it, his eyes already drifting to his phone. "Very impressive. Maybe someday you can do something with it. Someday." As if her work was a child's drawing to be pinned on the refrigerator and forgotten. He never understood what she was building. He never cared to. He never once asked her to explain how it worked or why it mattered. He just patted her on the head like she was a golden retriever who had learned a new trick and went back to his own important life. The house was full of evidence of their lopsided marriage if you knew where to look. Garrett's VP of Business Development Awards displayed prominently in the living room, polished weekly by the housekeeper Carolyn managed. Her MIT degree, gathering dust in a closet, hidden away because Garrett said it made guests feel inadequate. The baby nursery half finished because she had been painting it alone, her pregnant body aching on the ladder, while he worked late. Again, always again. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend Maya Johnson. "Lunch today, question mark. 1 o'clock at Marcello's. No excuses. I can hear you making excuses through the phone and I am not accepting them." Maya was a divorce attorney with zero tolerance for nonsense and a sharp wit that could cut glass. She had been Caroline's anchor through the exhaustion of pregnancy and the growing loneliness of her marriage. She was also the only person who had noticed that Caroline's smile no longer reached her eyes. Caroline typed back a quick confirmation. She needed to get out of this house. She needed to breathe air that did not taste like disappointment. 3 hours later, Carolyn sat across from Maya at their usual table. Marcello's was an upscale Italian restaurant where the pasta was handmade and the gossip was premium. The lunch crowd was the usual mix of society women and business executives, all of them performing their lives for each other. "Girl, you look like you have not slept in a week," Maya said, stirring her sparkling water. "And I say that with love and genuine concern for that beautiful baby you are growing. When is the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" Carolyn managed a tired smile. It felt like wearing a mask that no longer fit. "Garrett has been working late. The gala is coming up. He is stressed about the senior partnership announcement." Maya's eyebrow arched. That single eyebrow contained multitudes. "Mm-hmm. Working late. That is what my ex-husband called it too. Right up until I found out working late was a 23-year-old paralegal named Amber. Working late is the most popular lie married men tell. It is basically a genre at this point." "Garrett is not like that," Carolyn said, the words automatic. Defensive. She had said them so many times they had lost all meaning. Maya's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face changed. Something shifted behind her eyes, a look Carolyn had seen before, usually right before Maya delivered bad news to a client. It was the face of someone who knew they were about to break something that could not be fixed. "Carolyn," Maya said slowly. Her voice was gentle in a way that made Caroline's stomach drop. "I need to show you something, and I need you to breathe first. Take a deep breath. I mean it." She slid her phone across the white tablecloth. On the screen was a photo from a society blog. Garrett at a charity event from last week. The Children's Hospital fundraiser. The one he said was men only. The one he said Caroline would find boring anyway. His arm was around a young blonde woman in a red dress. Not just around her, wrapped around her. Possessive. Intimate. The caption read, "Innovate Solutions VP. Garrett Mitchell and companion at the Children's Hospital fundraiser." "That is probably just a colleague," Carolyn heard herself say. Her voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else, like it was coming from the bottom of a well. "Honey," Maya said gently, "look at where his hand is." Caroline looked closer, her vision blurred, then sharpened with terrible clarity. Garrett's hand rested possessively on the small of the woman's back, the same way he used to touch Caroline, back when he still touched her at all, back when she was interesting enough to touch. The woman was young, beautiful in that effortless way that made Caroline suddenly aware of every pound she had gained during pregnancy, every stretch mark hidden beneath her dress, every gray hair she had stopped bothering to cover. The restaurant seemed to tilt. The chatter of other diners faded to white noise. Caroline gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles going white. Inside her belly, the baby kicked, as if sensing that something was very, very wrong. "Who is she?" Caroline whispered. Maya's face was a mask of carefully controlled compassion. "I do not know yet, but I can find out. I have a friend who works in corporate investigations. I can have a full report by tomorrow." "No." Caroline shook her head. The motion made her dizzy. "No, there has to be an explanation. He would not do this after 12 years. With the baby coming, he would not." But even as she said the words, a small, cold voice in the back of her mind whispered, "Yes, he would. You have known something was wrong for months. You have felt him pulling away. You have seen the way he looks at his phone. You have noticed that he does not kiss you goodbye anymore. You just did not want to see it." She had been so busy being a good wife that she had ignored every sign that her husband had stopped being a good husband. The drive home was a blur. Caroline sat in the driveway for 20 minutes, staring at the house she had made into a home, the house where she had hosted Garrett's colleagues for dinner parties, smiling until her face ached, where she had rubbed his shoulders after hard days and told him everything would be okay, where she had given up piece after piece of herself to make room for his ambitions, where she had apparently become so boring that he needed to find excitement elsewhere. She thought about all the nights she had waited up for him, all the dinners that had gone cold, all the times she had reached for him in bed and felt him turn away. She had blamed herself. She was too tired, too pregnant, too focused on the baby, too focused on her algorithm, not focused enough on making herself interesting enough to keep. She finally forced herself to go inside, to sit down at her computer, to do what she should have done months ago. Carolyn started with the credit card statements. 12 years of marriage had made her complacent. She handled the household budget, but Garrett had his own corporate card, his own accounts, his own financial life that she had never thought to question. She questioned it now. The discoveries came like punches to the gut, one after another, relentless. Jewelry store purchases she never received, a diamond necklace, earrings, a bracelet, thousands of dollars of gifts that had never touched her skin. Hotel rooms in their own city, the Ritz-Carlton, the Peninsula, the kind of places you did not book for business meetings. Reservations for 2 at restaurants he claimed were client dinners, romantic restaurants. The kind with candles and live music and private booths, a recurring monthly payment to a luxury apartment complex across town, $3,500 a month for 18 months. The apartment was the worst, because it meant this was not a fling, not a mistake, not a moment of weakness. This was a second life, a parallel existence she knew nothing about. 18 months of rent payments, 18 months of lies. She did the math with trembling hands. $63,000 on an apartment for his mistress. While Carolyn had been clipping coupons and putting off buying new maternity clothes because she did not want to be wasteful, the baby kicked hard as if protesting this injustice on her behalf. Caroline called Garrett, voicemail, his smooth professional voice asking her to leave a message, as if she were a client, as if she were no one. She called again, voicemail. The third time he finally answered. His voice was impatient, annoyed. The voice of a man being interrupted during something more important. "Carolyn, I am in the middle of something." "What is it?" She kept her voice carefully controlled. Every word precise. "Where are you right now?" "The office. Working on the Henderson proposal." "Why? The Henderson proposal, right." Caroline took a breath. She could hear the lie in his voice and now could hear it so clearly she wondered how she had ever missed it. "Garrett. Who is Brittany Monroe?" The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. It stretched for 5 seconds. 10. An eternity. She could hear him breathing, could practically hear him thinking, calculating, deciding what lie to tell. "I will be home in an hour," he finally said. "We will talk then." Click. Carolyn sat in the gathering darkness of their living room, her hand on her belly, and waited for her husband to come home and explain how he had dismantled their entire life. She waited in his favorite armchair, a small act of reclamation, a small act of war. Garrett walked through the front door at exactly 7:15. Carolyn had been counting the minutes, 93 of them, 93 minutes to prepare herself for a conversation she never imagined having. 93 minutes to rehearse what she would say. 93 minutes to feel her heart break over and over again in anticipation. He looked the same as always. Tailored suit that cost more than most people's mortgage payments. Expensive watch that he had bought to celebrate his last promotion. The confident stride of a man who owned every room he entered, who had never been told no, who had never faced a consequence he could not talk his way out of. But something in his eyes was different tonight. Wary, calculating. The eyes of a man who knew he had been caught and was already planning his defense. Before you say anything, he started. Already on the defensive, already controlling the narrative. Let me explain. Caroline did not move from his favorite armchair. She had positioned herself there deliberately. A small act of reclamation. A small signal that the rules of this house had changed. Explain what, she said. Her voice was steady, calm. She was proud of that. She had practiced it in the mirror for an hour. The jewelry I never received. The hotel rooms. The apartment you have been paying for on Madison Avenue for 18 months. Or should we start with the woman you took to the charity event while I was home throwing up from morning sickness and painting the nursery by myself? Garrett's jaw tightened, a muscle twitched beneath his eye. He set down his briefcase with deliberate care, loosened his tie with slow, measured movements, buying himself time, calculating his approach. Caroline, he said, his voice shifting, softening into the tone he used when he wanted something, the tone he had used when he proposed, when he wanted her to give up her job, when he wanted her to understand why he could not come to her doctor's appointments. I was going to tell you, after the baby was born, I did not want to stress you during the pregnancy. I was trying to protect you. The audacity of it nearly took her breath away. The sheer, brazen audacity. How considerate, she said. The words tasted like poison. You were protecting me from stress by sleeping with someone else, by spending $63,000 on an apartment for your mistress, by buying her jewelry while I wore the same earrings I have had for 5 years. That is a fascinating definition of protection. Something flickered across his face. The mask he wore for clients and colleagues slipped, just for a moment, revealing something harder underneath, something colder. The real Garrett, the one she had spent 12 years refusing to see. Look, he said, the softness evaporating like morning frost. You want to do this? Fine. Let us do this. You have changed, okay? Ever since you got pregnant, you are always tired, always sick, always complaining about your back or your feet or how hard it is to sleep. You do not want to go out. You do not want to do anything. You have become this person I do not even recognize anymore. I am growing a human being inside my body, Caroline said. Her hand moved to her belly. Protective. Your human being. Our daughter. He kept talking as if she had not spoken, as if her words did not matter, as if she did not matter. Brittany is fun. She is exciting. She laughs at my jokes. She makes me feel like I matter, like I am interesting, like I am the most important person in the room when I am with her. When was the last time you made me feel like that, Caroline Twinifa? When was the last time you looked at me like I was anything other than a paycheck and a sperm donor? The words hit like physical blows, each one landing exactly where it would hurt the most. 12 years, a baby on the way, and she was not fun enough, not exciting enough, not young enough, not pretty enough, not enough, period. She thought about all the dinner parties, all the networking events where she had smiled until her face ached, all the times she had told him he was brilliant, even when his ideas were mediocre, all the times she had put his needs ahead of her own, and none of it had mattered. I did not ask you to give up your career, Garrett continued, pacing now, building momentum, shifting the blame. I did not ask you to become this housewife who does nothing but alphabetize spice racks and scribble equations on that whiteboard. You used to be interesting, Caroline. You used to have ambition. You used to be somebody. Now you are just furniture. You are just there, taking up space, making demands, being exhausting, furniture. The word hung in the air between them. Heavy, final. A verdict delivered without appeal. 12 years of marriage, thousands of meals cooked, hundreds of dinner parties hosted, countless presentations proofread at 2 in the morning, Countless shoulders rubbed, countless lies about how his ideas were brilliant, countless pieces of herself sacrificed on the altar of his ambition. And she was furniture. The worst part was that she had felt it. She had felt herself becoming invisible. She had felt him looking through her instead of at her. She had felt herself shrinking year after year until she barely recognized herself in the mirror. She had just thought it was her fault. She had thought if she tried harder, gave more, became better, he would see her again. But he had already stopped looking. Maybe he had never really seen her at all. "I want a divorce," Garrett said. The words were almost casual, like he was ordering lunch. "I will give you the house, reasonable child support. We can be civil about this, but I am done pretending to be happy. I am done pretending that this marriage is anything other than a prison sentence." He picked up his briefcase, straightened his tie, looked at her with something that might have been pity if it had any warmth in it at all. "My lawyer will be in touch. Do not make this difficult, Carolyn. You will not win." He walked out. The door slammed behind him. The sound echoed through the empty house like a gunshot, like a coffin closing, like the end of everything she had ever believed about her life. Carolyn sat alone in the gathering darkness, her hand on her belly where her daughter was kicking, and felt her entire world collapse into rubble around her. She did not cry, not yet. She was too shocked to cry, too numb, too empty. She just sat there in his favorite chair in the house she had made into a home for him and wondered how she had gotten here, how she had become furniture in her own life, how she had given everything to a man who saw her as nothing more than an inconvenience to be managed and eventually discarded. The baby kicked again, harder this time, insistent, demanding. "I know," Carolyn whispered. "I know, we are going to be okay. We have to be okay." But she did not believe it. Not yet. The next 72 hours were the worst of Carolyn's life. It started with her phone, notifications exploding like fireworks. Someone had leaked their separation to a gossip blog before Caroline had even told her own mother. The headline screamed across social media: "Innovate VP trades pregnant wife for younger model." There were photos of Garrett looking handsome and successful at various events, of Caroline looking tired and pregnant at the grocery store, caught by some stranger with a camera phone. The comparison was devastating, deliberate. The comments poured in, hundreds of them, then thousands. She let herself go. Can you blame him? Once a man is successful, he wants an upgrade. Basic biology should have kept him happy at home. Men do not cheat on wives who keep them satisfied. Look at her. Look at the other woman. You do the math. Probably was not even his baby anyway. Carolyn read them all, every single one. Some masochistic part of her needed to see what the world really thought of women like her. Women who gave everything and still were not enough. Women who aged while their husbands stayed handsome. Women who got pregnant and got discarded. Her mother called, not to comfort her, to criticize. "Caroline, this is so embarrassing." Her mother's voice was sharp with disapproval. "Everyone at church is talking about it. Pastor Williams asked me if you were okay, and I did not know what to tell him. What did you do to drive him away? I told you not to gain so much weight during the pregnancy. What did she do?" As if infidelity was a math equation. As if she had failed to carry the one somewhere, and the answer was her husband in another woman's bed. As if she was responsible for his choices, his betrayal, his lies. "Thanks for the support, Mom," Carolyn said, and hung up. Then came the financial betrayal. Carolyn went to the bank the next morning, hoping to access their joint accounts. To secure some stability for herself and the baby. She had a right to that money. She had contributed to it. Her inheritance from her grandmother was in there. The bank manager, a nervous man with a receding hairline and sweat stains under his arms, could not meet her eyes. "Mrs. Mitchell, I am sorry, but there has been a change in account authorization. Your access has been modified. You will need to speak with your husband." Modified. Such a clean word for what Garrett had done. Such a corporate, sanitized word for theft. He had frozen her out of their accounts. All of them. The checking, the savings, the investment portfolio. 12 years of marriage and she had no access to any of it. Carolyn left the bank with $347 in her personal checking account. The account she used for small purchases, coffee, books, the occasional treat for herself that she always felt guilty about. 6 months pregnant, $347 to her name, and a husband who had just stolen everything else. The stress was too much. That night, her body rebelled. The contractions started around midnight, sharp, rhythmic waves of pain that sent terror shooting through her veins. They were too strong, too regular, too early. The baby was not ready. She was not ready. Caroline called Garrett. He did not answer. She called again. Nothing. She texted, having contractions. Going to hospital. Please. He never responded. Not that night. Not ever. She called Maya, who arrived at the hospital within 20 minutes, still in her pajamas, her hair wrapped in a silk scarf, her eyes wild with worry. The doctor was a kind woman with tired eyes and steady hands who had clearly seen too many women in Caroline's position. Mrs. Mitchell, you are experiencing stress-induced preterm contractions. We have stopped them for now, but you need to rest. Your blood pressure is dangerously high. Dangerously. Any more stress like this could endanger both you and the baby. I need you to understand how serious this is. Carolyn lay in the hospital bed, monitors beeping around her, IV dripping into her arm, and felt more alone than she had ever felt in her life. More alone than when her father died. More alone than when she moved across the country for Garrett's job. More alone than all those nights she had spent waiting for him to come home. I cannot even fall apart properly, she told Maya, tears streaming down her face. My body will not let me. This baby needs me to survive, and I do not know how I am going to do that. I do not know how to survive this. Maya held her hand. Her grip was fierce, protective, the grip of a woman who had walked through fire and come out the other side. Then you will learn, Maya said. That is what women do. We learn, we adapt, we survive. Even when everything tells us we cannot. Even when we do not want to. We survive. And then, when we are ready, when we have caught our breath, we come back and burn their whole world down. Carolyn looked at her friend, at the fierce determination in her eyes, at the absolute certainty that survival was possible. How? Caroline whispered. How do I survive this? Maya leaned closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper that was somehow more powerful than a shout. One day at a time, she said. 1 hour at a time. One breath at a time. You do not have to figure out the whole future tonight. You just have to make it to tomorrow. And then the next day, and the day after that. And somewhere along the way, you will stop surviving and start living again. I promise you, Caroline, it does not feel like it now, but you are going to come out of this stronger than you have ever been. And then you are going to make him regret the day he ever called you furniture. 1 week later, Caroline sat in Maya's law office. The leather chair felt too big for her, like she was a child playing at being an adult. She had dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. Her hands trembled slightly when she reached for the water glass Maya offered. She had lost 6 pounds in 7 days. Weight, her doctor said, she could not afford to lose while pregnant. But she was there. She was upright. She was fighting. That alone felt like a victory. Girl, Maya said, sliding a document across the polished mahogany desk. Her voice had that tone, the tone that meant something big was coming. I do not know what God you have been praying to, but she is listening. She is listening hard. Garrett's lawyer just sent over their settlement offer this morning. You need to look at this. Carolyn picked up the document with shaking hands. Read it once. The numbers blurred. She blinked, wiped her eyes, read it again. Her mouth fell open. The offer was generous. Shockingly generous. Suspiciously generous. $2.5 million lump sum payment. The house fully paid off, transferred entirely into her name. $8,000 per month in child support until the child turned 18. Full custody of the baby with no visitation requirements. All medical expenses covered for both her and the baby for the next 5 years. This is more than fair, Carolyn said slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. This is insanely generous. Garrett has never been generous about anything in his entire life. He argued with waiters about splitting checks. He made me justify every purchase over $50. Why would he offer this? What is he doing? Maya leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. Her expression was carefully neutral, the face she wore when she was letting a client reach their own conclusions. Apparently, his company is going public next quarter. The IPO is projected to be huge. A messy, drawn-out divorce could tank his stock options, could make him look bad to investors. He wants this done fast and quiet. One signature, and you are free. Free and wealthy. Carolyn stared at the numbers. $2.5 million. It was more money than she had ever imagined having. More than her parents had earned in their entire lives combined. It would mean security for her and the baby. A fresh start. A chance to rebuild everything from the ground up without worrying about rent or groceries or medical bills. She could buy a new house. A safe house. A house without memories of Garrett in every corner. She could set up a college fund for her daughter. She could take time off to heal, to be a mother, to figure out who she was without a husband who made her feel invisible. It was everything she needed, handed to her on a silver platter. But something felt wrong. Something felt very, very wrong. When someone offers you more than they have to, a voice in her head whispered, ask yourself what they know that you do not. Generosity from a cheating spouse is not kindness. It is not guilt. It is a cover-up. It is hush money. It is the price of your silence about something you do not even know exists yet. Carolyn had spent 12 years ignoring her instincts. 12 years telling herself she was being paranoid when she felt Garrett pulling away. 12 years convincing herself that everything was fine when nothing was fine. She was done ignoring that voice. Give me 48 hours, Caroline said. I need to think about this. Maya nodded slowly. Her eyes held a question she was too professional to ask, but Caroline could see it anyway. The question was, what do you think he is hiding? Caroline did not know yet, but she was going to find out. That night, Caroline could not sleep. She wandered through the dark house like a ghost, her hand on her belly, her mind racing in circles that led nowhere good. The settlement document sat on the kitchen counter. $2.5 million. Sign here. Initial here. Walk away. Be free. Why was Garrett being so generous? The question gnawed at her like a rat in the walls. He had never given her anything without getting something bigger in return. Never, not once in 12 years. Even his proposal had been strategic. She remembered it now with painful clarity. He had proposed 3 days before his interview for a senior position at his company. Having a fiancée had made him look more stable, more mature, more ready for leadership, more promotable. She had thought it was romantic at the time. Now she saw it for what it was. A business decision dressed up in roses and a diamond ring. What was he getting out of this settlement? What was he buying with $2.5 million? What did he think her ignorance was worth? She found herself in her home office, standing in front of the whiteboard covered in her algorithm. The equations seemed to glow in the moonlight streaming through the window. 7 years of work, her passion project, the thing Garrett called her cute little hobby, the thing he never once asked her to explain. On impulse, driven by something she could not name, she sat down at her computer, logged into Garrett's home network. His password had not changed in years. Brittany 2023. He was not smart enough to think she would ever check. He had always underestimated her. That was his biggest mistake. She was wrong about a lot of things in her marriage. But she was right about that. What she found in his email made her blood run cold. First, the messages to his lawyer. Long threads of detailed discussions about how to hide assets before the divorce filing, how to move money without triggering reporting requirements, how to structure offshore accounts to avoid detection, a separate bank account in the Cayman Islands. $4.7 million sitting in an account she never knew existed. $4.7 million. While she had been clipping coupons, while she had been feeling guilty about buying maternity clothes, while she had been told they needed to be careful with money. Then she found the correspondence with Knight Enterprises, a tech conglomerate so massive that it made Innovate Solutions look like a child's lemonade stand. They were interested in acquiring a patent, a quantum encryption algorithm that could revolutionize cybersecurity, an algorithm that could change the world. Her algorithm. Carolyn's heart stopped when she saw the patent filing. The document was attached to an email with the subject line, Filing Confirmation. It was for the Mitchell-Larsen quantum encryption protocol. 7 years of her work. her intellectual property, her brilliance, her future, filed under Garrett Michael Mitchell as sole inventor, as if she had never existed. The filing date was 2 weeks ago, right after he asked for the divorce, right before he offered her a settlement that suddenly made perfect sense. She scrolled further with hands that shook so badly she could barely control the mouse. Found an email thread with Brittany. The subject line was just a heart emoji. Once this patent goes through, Garrett had written, I am looking at 50 to 100 million minimum. That is not an exaggeration. Knight Enterprises is desperate for this technology. After the divorce is final, we can go public with our relationship. You will be Mrs. Mitchell before the baby's first birthday. Just be patient a little longer, gorgeous. Everything we have been waiting for is about to happen. Brittany's reply was attached, a wall of text with too many exclamation points and heart emojis. Cannot wait, baby, she had written. You deserve this so much. She has no idea, does she? That boring little housewife has no clue what she has been sitting on this whole time, lol. So sad for her, but also kind of hilarious. That is what happens when you let yourself become furniture, I guess. She could have been something, but she chose to be nothing. Her loss, our gain. See you tonight. Cannot wait to celebrate. Wear that blue tie I like. Carolyn sat in the blue light of the computer screen, 7 months pregnant, and realized the full scope of her husband's betrayal. He was not just leaving her for another woman. He was not just abandoning his pregnant wife for a younger model. He was robbing her, systematically, deliberately, with malice and forethought. 7 years of her work, her brilliance, her sleepless nights, her breakthrough moments, her future. He was going to walk away with all of it while she raised his child on whatever scraps he decided to throw her. $2.5 million, a fortune to her. Pocket change compared to what he was stealing. The generous settlement made perfect, horrible sense now. 2.5 million was nothing compared to 50 or 100 million. He was buying her silence before she knew there was anything to be silent about. He was buying her ignorance, her trust, her complicity in her own destruction. He had calculated exactly how much money it would take to make her go away quietly, and he had added a little extra just to make sure. She reached for her phone, dialed Maya's number. It rang 4 times before her friend answered, voice thick with sleep. Someone better be dead or dying, Maya mumbled. Do you know what time it is? He stole my algorithm, Caroline said. Her voice was steady now, cold in a way that surprised her. The tears she expected did not come. There was no room for tears. There was only rage, pure, clarifying rage. He filed a patent for my work under his name. He is going to sell it to Knight Enterprises for up to $100 million. And I have 48 hours before I am supposed to sign away my right to fight any of it. There was a long pause, then the sound of Maya sitting up, sheets rustling, a lamp clicking on. Say that again, Maya said. Her voice was different now, sharp, alert. The voice of a lawyer who smelled blood in the water. Caroline said it again. Every word. I am on my way, Maya said. Do not touch anything else on that computer. Do not delete anything. Do not move anything. Make coffee, strong coffee. We are going to war. Maya arrived at 2:14 in the morning with her laptop bag over one shoulder, a stack of legal pads under her arm, and a bottle of expensive red wine that she declared was for emergencies only. If this is not an emergency, she said, setting everything down on Caroline's kitchen table, then emergencies do not exist. Oh, okay, sit down, breathe, and walk me through everything from the beginning. She was still in her pajamas, a silk set that probably cost more than Caroline's entire maternity wardrobe. Her hair was wrapped in a scarf. Her eyes were sharp despite the hour. She looked like a general who had been roused from sleep to command a midnight battle. And that was exactly what this was. A battle, a war. One that Caroline had not known she was fighting until the enemy had already stolen everything. Okay, Maya said, settling into a chair like she owned it. Walk me through this algorithm. What exactly is it? Why is it valuable? And most importantly, how do you prove it is yours and not his? Caroline took a deep breath. She had not talked about her work like this in years. Garrett's eyes always glazed over when she tried. Eventually, she had stopped trying. It is a quantum encryption protocol, she began. The basic problem with quantum computing is that it makes current encryption methods obsolete. Every secure system in the world, every bank, every government, every military, uses encryption that quantum computers will eventually be able to break. My algorithm solves that problem. It stabilizes quantum states in a way that makes truly unhackable communication possible. Not theoretically possible, actually possible, buildable, deployable. Maya stared at her. So you invented something that could protect every secret on the planet. Essentially, yes, in your spare time. Between dinner parties and doctor appointments and painting the nursery by myself, yes. Maya let out a low whistle. Girl, you buried the lead on yourself for 12 years. I know. Carolyn's voice cracked slightly. I know I did. Okay, Maya pulled out a legal pad and started writing. So the algorithm is valuable, world-changingly valuable. The question is, can you prove it is yours? Because Garrett's lawyers are going to say he invented it. They are going to say you were just the supportive wife who watched him work. They are going to say you do not have the technical background to create something like this. But I do have the background. I have a degree from MIT in computer science. I worked as a software engineer for 6 years before I gave it up for Garrett, which they will say was a long time ago. What else do you have? I have everything, Caroline said. The words came out stronger than she expected. I have dated notebooks going back to when I started. Physical notebooks with timestamps and coffee stains and margin notes. I have emails to former colleagues at MIT discussing the theoretical framework. I have version-controlled code on my personal cloud server. Every change dated and logged. Garrett does not even know that server exists. He never asked. He never cared enough to ask. Maya's eyes gleamed in the kitchen light. Baby, you just told me you have a paper trail longer than a CVS receipt. Every dated notebook is evidence. Every email is evidence. Every version of code is evidence with a timestamp his lawyers cannot argue with. She stood up and started pacing. Her pajamas swished against Caroline's tile floor. We are not just going to stop him, Maya said. We are going to destroy him. We are going to take back everything he stole, and then we are going to take everything he thought was his. By the time I am done, Garrett Mitchell is going to wish he had never heard the word algorithm. They worked through the night, coffee cups accumulated on the table, legal pads filled with notes. The sky outside turned from black to gray to the pale pink of dawn. By 6 in the morning, they had a strategy. The first step was freezing Garrett's patent application. Maya knew a judge, a woman named Patricia Reeves, who owed her a favor and had a reputation for taking intellectual property theft seriously. More importantly, Judge Reeves had a particular dislike for men who cheated on their pregnant wives. Maya did not say how she knew this. Caroline did not ask. The second step was documenting Garrett's financial fraud, the hidden accounts, the offshore money, the systematic concealment of assets during divorce proceedings. For that, Maya called in reinforcements. Her brother Marcus Johnson arrived at 9 in the morning, impeccably dressed in a 3-piece suit despite having been woken up 2 hours earlier. He carried a briefcase full of forensic accounting tools that Caroline did not understand, and a smile that said he absolutely loved his job. So let me get this straight, Marcus said, reviewing the evidence they had gathered on Caroline's kitchen table. He spoke slowly like a man savoring a particularly fine meal. Your husband is trying to steal your intellectual property, hide over $4 million in offshore accounts, sell stolen technology to a Fortune 500 company, and convince you to sign away all your rights for a fraction of what he is making. And he thinks you are just going to accept the settlement and go away quietly. He thinks I am furniture, Caroline said. She was tired beyond exhaustion now, but something had shifted in her. Something had hardened. He said it to my face. He thinks I am too boring and too stupid to figure out what he is doing. Marcus laughed, a deep, rich sound that filled the kitchen. Oh, this is going to be fun. This man is about to find out that furniture can set the whole house on fire. The third step was the hardest and the most important. They needed to get to Donovan Knight directly, to warn him that he was about to buy stolen property, to turn Garrett's potential savior into his executioner, to take the very deal Garrett was counting on and turn it into a weapon against him. How do we get to a billionaire? Carolyn asked. Her voice was hoarse from talking for all night. I am 7 months pregnant with $347 in my bank account and a husband who is trying to steal everything I have ever created. I do not exactly have access to billionaire social circles. Maya smiled. It was the smile of a woman holding a royal flush. Actually, she said, I might know someone. It turned out that Maya and Donovan Knight had been in the same section during their first year of law school, before he dropped out after the first semester to start his first company, before he became one of the richest men in America. Back when he was just a smart kid with big dreams and a habit of falling asleep in constitutional law. They had kept in touch over the years. Christmas cards, occasional coffee when he was in town. The kind of friendship that exists in the background of life, never demanding anything, always there when needed. You are friends with Donovan Knight, Caroline said, her voice rising with each word. You are actual friends with an actual billionaire, and you are just now mentioning this. We have been friends for 15 years, Maya. 15 years. How did this never come up? We are not friends, Maya said, waving her hand dismissively. We are like each other's Instagram post friends. We comment happy birthday once a year friends. But I do have his personal email, and more importantly, he owes me a favor. What kind of favor? In 2019, he was about to invest $200 million in a company that turned out to be running a massive fraud. I had a client who had inside information. I made some calls. He pulled out of the deal 3 days before the whole thing collapsed. He told me if I ever needed anything, anything at all, he would be there. Maya pulled out her phone and started typing. Subject line, that favor you owe me, important, time-sensitive, involves potential intellectual property fraud and a very pregnant woman who deserves justice. She looked up at Caroline. Too dramatic. Send it, Caroline said. Maya hit send, and if he does not respond, we go to Plan B. What is Plan B? We crash the Innovate Solutions Gala in 2 weeks and make a scene so spectacular that every business publication in the country covers it. Either way, Garrett is not walking away with your life's work. Donovan Knight responded within 6 hours. His email was brief and direct. The email of a man who did not waste words. Maya, intriguing subject line. I am in the city in Eto'o Friday. My assistant will arrange a meeting. Tell your friend to bring documentation. That was it. No pleasantries, no questions, just action. The meeting was scheduled for 2 days later, not in an office, which surprised Caroline. In a private suite at the Windsor Grand Hotel, the same hotel where Garrett's gala would be held in 2 weeks. Caroline spent those 2 days preparing like her life depended on it, because it did. Her life and her daughter's life. She gathered every piece of documentation she had, 7 years of notebooks, hundreds of emails, thousands of lines of code with timestamps that could not be faked. She organized it into a presentation that even a non-technical audience could understand. She practiced her pitch in front of Maya until she could deliver it in her sleep. She was not going to this meeting as a wronged wife begging for help. She was not going to cry or plead or appeal to anyone's sympathy. She was going as a brilliant engineer presenting a business opportunity to a potential investor. A business opportunity that happened to involve her cheating husband trying to commit fraud. The fact that stopping Garrett would also mean justice for her was almost incidental. Almost. The suite at the Windsor Grand was elegant in an understated way that whispered money rather than shouting it. Cream-colored walls, fresh flowers in crystal vases. A view of the city that stretched to the horizon. A view that reminded Caroline of everything she had given up to support Garrett's ambitions. All those years of making herself smaller. All those years of dimming her light so he could shine brighter. All those years of being told her work was a cute hobby while she was building something that could change the world. She was done being small. Donovan Knight was not what she expected. She had imagined someone flashy. Gold watches and designer suits and the kind of arrogance that comes from never hearing the word no. Instead, she found a man in his late 40s with a mane of silver-streaked dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. His handshake was firm without being aggressive. His attention, when he turned it on her, was complete. Total. He looked at her like she was the only person in the world worth listening to. It was disorienting. After 12 years of being looked through by Garrett, being actually seen felt almost painful. Mrs. Mitchell, Donovan said, gesturing for her to sit across from him. Maya speaks very highly of you. She also says your husband is trying to sell me stolen property. That is a serious accusation. Carolyn lifted her chin, refused to look away. She is right. And if you buy it, you will be exposed to massive legal liability when I prove the theft in court, which I will because I have documentation for every single day of the 7 years I spent creating the algorithm my husband is trying to sell you. That is quite a claim. Donovan's expression did not change, but something flickered in his eyes. Interest, respect. What makes you so sure you can prove it? Carolyn pulled out her folder, opened it on the table between them. 7 years of documentation, notebooks with dated entries, code printouts with version numbers and timestamps, emails with headers that showed exactly when they were sent. For the next 20 minutes, she walked him through the algorithm, not as a wronged wife, not as a victim, as the brilliant engineer she had always been underneath the wife and the hostess and the support system, the brilliant engineer she had buried under years of being what Garrett wanted her to be. She explained the quantum stabilization problem. She explained her solution. She explained why it worked when other approaches had failed. She explained the potential applications, the market opportunity, the competitive advantage. When she finished, Donovan was quiet for a long moment. His fingers steepled under his chin. The silence stretched until Caroline had to resist the urge to fill it with nervous chatter. Finally, he spoke. "This is remarkable," he said. His voice was different now, warmer. The algorithm itself, I mean. "My team has been trying to solve this exact problem for 3 years. We have spent tens of millions of dollars on research, and you solved it." "I solved it in my spare time," Carolyn said. "Between hosting dinner parties and managing my husband's calendar and alphabetizing spice racks and being told I was boring." "Your husband called you boring, furniture actually. He said I used to be interesting, but now I was just furniture. Something that takes up space. Something you stop noticing after a while." Donovan's expression shifted. Something that might have been admiration flickered in his eyes. Or maybe it was recognition. The recognition of one underestimated person seeing another. "I have met a lot of people in my life, Mrs. Mitchell," he said slowly. "Brilliant people, ruthless people. People who think they are brilliant but are actually just ruthless. Your husband is that last category. He has good instincts for finding value and terrible ethics about how to acquire it." He leaned forward. "You, on the other hand, you are the first category, genuinely brilliant, and you do not even know it yet. You have been told you were furniture for so long that you started to believe it. But furniture does not invent technology that could change the world. Furniture does not document 7 years of work with the precision of a scientist. Furniture does not walk into a meeting with a billionaire and present a technical argument that my own research team could not poke holes in." Caroline felt tears prick at her eyes. She blinked them back. She had not come here to cry. "I have a proposal," Donovan said, "not about the divorce. That is your business, and I will not interfere. This is about the algorithm. I want to license it, legitimately, from you. $15 million up front, plus 8% royalties on all products that use it." Caroline forgot how to breathe. $15 million. "That is my opening offer," Donovan said. A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. "I am told I should negotiate, but I find lowballing people tedious. That number reflects what I believe your work is actually worth. If anything, it is conservative." "I need to think about this," Carolyn managed. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. "Of course. Take whatever time you need. But Mrs. Mitchell, Carolyn, whatever you decide about the licensing deal, I want you to know something. I am not buying from your husband. That deal is dead. It was dead the moment you walked into this room with that folder. You have already won that part of this fight." He stood, walked to the door, paused with his hand on the handle. "There is a gala in 2 weeks," he said. "Innovate Solutions. I assume your husband will be there with his companion?" "Making announcements, celebrating his success." "Yes," Caroline said. "He will. I will be there too." Donovan's eyes met hers. "If you would like to deliver the news to him personally, in front of everyone he is trying to impress, I would be happy to escort you." Carolyn's heart hammered. "Why would you do that? You do not know me. You do not owe me anything." "Because I have watched a lot of powerful men take credit for brilliant women's work," Donovan said. "I have seen it happen over and over in this industry. And I will be honest with you. Early in my career, I benefited from it too, without realizing what I was doing. I did not steal anyone's work, But I did not ask enough questions about where ideas came from. I did not notice when women in my company were overlooked and their contributions were credited to men. He paused. This is my chance to set one of those scales right, to be on the right side of the story for once. And frankly, the look on your husband's face when he realizes what is happening is going to be worth more than anything I could buy. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of activity that made Carolyn feel like she was living someone else's life. A life where things actually went right. A life where justice was not just a word people used to make themselves feel better. Carolyn signed documents with Donovan's legal team. $15 million. Her name on every page. Her work finally recognized as her own. Maya filed counter motions that froze Garrett's patent application, and the look on his lawyer's face when they served the papers was something Caroline wished she could frame. Marcus traced the offshore accounts with the enthusiasm of a hunting dog on a scent. 4.7 million in the Caymans, another 2.3 in Switzerland that Garrett had apparently forgotten to mention to anyone. Evidence that would destroy him in court. Evidence that it would expose him as not just a cheater, but a fraud. Everything was coming together. For the first time in months, Caroline allowed herself to hope. She got fitted for a gown at a boutique Maya insisted on. The kind of place where they offered you champagne and did not have price tags on anything because if you had to ask, you could not afford it. Donovan's assistant had called ahead. The bill would be handled. Caroline had tried to refuse. Maya had told her to shut up and enjoy being treated like she deserved for once in her life. The dress was midnight blue. Elegant without being flashy. Cut to accommodate her pregnancy beautifully. To celebrate it rather than hide it. When Caroline looked in the mirror, she did not see the exhausted, broken woman who had cried on her bathroom floor 3 months ago. She saw someone else. Someone stronger. Someone who had walked through fire and come out the other side holding a sword. You look like revenge dressed in Valentino, Maya said when Caroline emerged from the dressing room. And I mean that as the highest possible compliment. I feel like I am going to topple over, Caroline admitted, wobbling slightly in the heels the stylist had selected. These shoes are weapons. I could kill someone with these heels. That is what the billionaire's arm is for, Maya said with a wicked grin. Balance and intimidation. Nothing says I have moved on like walking into your ex-husband's party on the arm of someone who could buy and sell him 1,000 times over. Caroline laughed. The sound surprised her. She had not laughed in weeks. Not really. This is not about Donovan. This is about me. I need Garrett to see what he threw away. I need him to understand what he lost when he decided I was furniture. Oh, he will see. Maya's eyes were fierce, protective, the eyes of a warrior going into battle beside her sister in arms. He will see everything, and then he will spend the rest of his miserable life watching you from the other side of a window he can never open again. He will watch you succeed, watch you thrive. Watch your daughter grow up brilliant and strong, and he will know that he could have been part of that story, but he chose to throw it all away for a woman whose only talent is looking good in a red dress. The night before the gala, Caroline could not sleep. But for once, it was not because of anxiety or fear or grief. It was because she was excited, nervous, yes, terrified, absolutely. But underneath all of that, something else, something that felt like hope, something that felt like power. She found herself in the baby's nursery, sitting in the rocking chair he had bought with her own money. The room was finally finished, every detail perfect, every choice made by her alone. While gray walls, white furniture, a mobile of stars and moons that caught the light from the window. Her daughter's room, her daughter's future, built by Caroline's hands while Garrett was building his secret life somewhere else. She talked to her daughter for the first time that night, not about Garrett, not about the divorce, not about the battles still to come, just about her, about who she was going to be, about the world she was entering. I want you to know something, Caroline said softly, her hand on her belly where she could feel her daughter moving. Before you are born, before you can understand words, your mom made mistakes, big ones. She lost herself for a while trying to be what someone else wanted her to be. She forgot that she was brilliant. She forgot that she mattered. She let someone convince her she was nothing. The baby kicked, hard, like she was agreeing, like she was saying, go on. But she found her way back, Carolyn continued. And when you come into this world, you are going to see a mother who fights, who builds, who creates things that matter, who never ever lets anyone tell her she is just furniture. You are going to grow up knowing that your worth is not determined by how well you serve someone else. Your worth is determined by who you are, and by what you create, by how you love. The baby kicked again. I will take that as agreement, Caroline whispered, smiling through tears that did not feel like sadness anymore. They felt like something else, like release, like a promise being made. You and me against the world, baby girl. We are going to be okay. We are going to be better than okay. She sat there until the sun came up, talking to her daughter about everything and nothing, about dreams and hopes and the future spreading out before them like an ocean, about all the things Carolyn was going to teach her, about all the mistakes she would help her avoid. When the morning light finally filled the room, Carolyn felt ready, ready for whatever came next, ready to face Garrett and Brittany and everyone who had counted her out, ready to show them all exactly who they had underestimated. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. The morning of the gala, everything fell apart. Caroline arrived at Maya's office for a final review. She was wearing her gown under her coat, her hair styled in elegant waves, her makeup flawless for the first time in months. She looked like a woman going to her coronation. She felt like a woman going to war. But Maya's face was pale when Caroline walked in. Pale in a way that made Caroline's stomach drop through the floor. Marcus was there too, staring at his laptop screen like it contained news of a death in the family. Neither of them would meet her eyes. Caroline, Maya said slowly. Her voice was the voice she used with clients when she was about to deliver devastating news. We have a problem. The world tilted. The hope Caroline had been nurturing for 2 weeks turned to ice in her chest. What kind of problem? Garrett filed an emergency motion this morning at 6 a.m. before the courts even officially opened. He must have called in every favor he had. He is claiming you are mentally unstable. Pregnancy psychosis, his filing says. He is requesting full custody of the baby when it is born. Carolyn felt the blood drain from her face. The room spun. She grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. What? He cannot do that. On what grounds? That is insane. It gets worse. Maya's voice broke slightly. Caroline had never heard Maya's voice break before. He has an affidavit, a sworn statement supporting his claims. From who? Carolyn demanded. Who would lie for him like that? Who would help him try to take my baby? Maya's face crumpled. From your mother. The words did not make sense. Caroline heard them, but her brain refused to process them. They were sounds without meaning, impossible sounds. What do you mean from my mother? She is testifying that you have shown signs of paranoid delusion. Maya pulled up the document on her laptop, turning it so Caroline could see. The words swam before her eyes. That you have accused your husband of elaborate conspiracies to steal your imaginary intellectual property. That you have a history of mental health struggles dating back to your teenage years that you have hidden from everyone, including your husband. That she fears for the safety of her grandchild if the baby is left in your care. That is not true, Carolyn said. Her voice was rising, cracking. None of that is true. I do not have a history of mental illness. I have never been delusional in my life. My mother is lying. She is lying because she is ashamed of the divorce. Because she blames me for not being a good enough wife. Because she thinks if I had just behaved better, been prettier, been more accommodating, none of this would have happened. I know. Maya reached for her hand. Her grip was tight, fierce. But Caroline, the judge assigned to the emergency motion, is Robert Harmon. He is old school in the worst possible way. He believes mothers should be in the home raising children, not working or having careers. He has ruled against career women in custody battles more times than I can count. His own wife gave up a law career to raise his children. And with this affidavit from your own mother, your own flesh and blood, he is going to take my baby. Carolyn's hand went to her belly, protective, desperate. The baby kicked, as if sensing her mother's fear. Oh God, he is going to take her from me. Not if we fight it, Maya said, but fighting it means war. Full, public, ugly war. It means deposing your mother. It means dragging your entire family history into open court. It means Garrett's lawyers attacking your mental health, your fitness as a mother, every choice you have ever made. And even if we do all of that, there is no guarantee we win. Judge Harmon has made up his mind about women like you before he even reads the briefs. Carolyn stood at the window looking out at the city. The same city she had watched from Donovan's hotel suite when she felt like she was finally winning. The same city where her husband was probably getting dressed right now, preparing to celebrate his victory at the gala, smugly confident that he had finally found the weapon that would break her. She thought about the past 3 months, the discoveries, the betrayals, the moment she found out about Brittany, the moment she found out about the stolen patent, the moment she realized her husband had never loved her at all, had only used her as a stepping stone on his way to the life he really wanted. And now this, the ultimate betrayal. Her own mother, siding with the man who had destroyed her daughter's life. Fear was a compass, she realized suddenly. The thought came from nowhere, clear and sharp as a bell. Fear pointed directly at the thing you needed to do. The thing you were most afraid of was usually the thing that mattered most. Garrett was betting that the threat of losing her baby would make her retreat. He was counting on her fear to paralyze her, to send her running back to sign his settlement agreement, to give up the fight and accept whatever scraps he decided to throw her. He did not understand. He had never understood. He thought she was furniture. He thought she would break. But protecting her daughter was exactly why she could not retreat, exactly why she had to keep fighting. Because some battles you fight because winning is possible, and some battles you fight because not fighting is unthinkable. No, Carolyn said. Maya looked up. No what? No, I am not canceling tonight. Caroline turned from the window. Her eyes were steel, hardened by 3 months of fire. He is trying to scare me. That is all he has ever done. Scare me into being small and quiet and convenient. Scare me into giving up. Scare me into believing I am nothing without him. She straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin. But here is what he does not understand. I am not fighting to destroy him. I am not fighting for revenge or money or pride by him. I am fighting so my daughter grows up knowing that when powerful men try to crush you, when the whole world seems stacked against you, when even your own mother betrays you, you stand up anyway. You fight anyway. You refuse to be broken. She picked up her coat. Tonight happens. And Garrett Mitchell is going to find out exactly what happens when you underestimate a woman with nothing left to lose. Her phone buzzed. Donovan, my team just sent me the filing, he said when she answered. His voice was gentle, concerned. Carolyn, I am so sorry. If you want to cancel tonight, I completely understand. We can reschedule. We can find another way. Tonight happens, Caroline said. Her voice did not waver. I will be ready at 7. There was a pause, then softly with something that sounded like admiration. I will be there. The Windsor Grand Hotel ballroom was everything Caroline remembered and nothing like she expected. She had attended events here before, dozens of times, always as Garrett's wife, standing slightly behind him, smiling at the right people at the right moments, making small talk that greased the wheels of his ambition while her own dreams gathered dust, laughing at jokes that were not funny, complimenting women she did not like, playing the role of supportive spouse so perfectly that she had forgotten it was a role at all. She had been invisible at those events, part of the scenery, a decorative accessory on her husband's arm, furniture just as he had said. Tonight, she was not invisible. Caroline stood at the grand entrance of the ballroom, her hand resting in the crook of Donovan Knight's arm. Her midnight blue gown caught the light from the crystal chandeliers and scattered it like stars. Her other hand rested on her belly, where her daughter was moving restlessly, as if she could sense that something important was about to happen. The room fell silent as they entered. Not gradually, not subtly. The conversation stopped like someone had pulled a plug. Champagne glasses froze halfway to lips. 100 pairs of eyes swiveled toward the entrance, then widened in shock. Donovan Knight was here. Everyone knew Donovan Knight. Everyone wanted a moment with Donovan Knight. But Donovan Knight was not alone. He was escorting a pregnant woman in a midnight blue gown. A woman who looked familiar. A woman who looked like, oh my God, someone whispered. Is that Garrett's wife? Across the ballroom, near the champagne fountain, where he had been holding court like a king surveying his domain, Garrett Mitchell turned to see what everyone was staring at, and he froze. The champagne glass in his hand stopped halfway to his lips. His confident smile collapsed like a building in an earthquake. His face went through a rapid succession of expressions, each one more satisfying than the last. Confusion, disbelief, recognition, and then, finally, something that looked remarkably like fear. Real fear. The kind of fear that comes when you realize you have made a terrible miscalculation. Garrett, Brittany said, tugging insistently at his arm. Her voice was high and whiny. Garrett, is that your ex-wife? What is she doing here? Why is she with him? But Garrett was not looking at Caroline anymore. He was looking at the man beside her, at Donovan Knight, at the billionaire whose company was supposed to buy Garrett's stolen patent and make him rich beyond his wildest dreams. The man who was now escorting Garrett's pregnant wife into the most important event of Garrett's career. The room buzzed with whispered speculation. Caroline could feel the weight of 100 stares, could practically hear the gossip being composed in real time. This was the kind of scandal that would fuel dinner party conversations for months. The kind of story people would tell and retell until it became legend. She had dreamed of this moment, had imagined it 1,000 times during the sleepless nights of the past 3 months, had pictured Garrett's face when he realized that everything he had planned was falling apart. The reality was better than any dream. Carolyn met Garrett's gaze across the room. She did not flinch, did not look away, did not show even a flicker of the fear that was churning in her stomach. She had learned to hide her fear. She had learned to turn her pain into armor. She held his gaze for a long, deliberate moment. Let him see that she was not afraid of him anymore. Let him see that the woman he had called furniture had been rebuilt into something far more dangerous. And then she turned to Donovan and smiled at something he said, dismissing Garrett from her reality as easily as changing a television channel. As if he did not matter. As if he had never mattered at all. The effect was devastating. She could feel Garrett rage from across the room, could practically see him vibrating with the need to reassert control. He had never been good at being ignored. His entire identity was built on being the center of attention. And now his pregnant wife was stealing his spotlight at his own event, on the arm of a man who could buy and sell him 1,000 times over. Garrett could not help himself. He abandoned his post near the champagne fountain and crossed the room, walking fast enough that Brittany struggled to keep up in her too tight dress and her too high heels. Her face was flushed with anger and embarrassment. She had expected to be the queen of this ball. Instead, she was struggling to keep pace with a man who had already forgotten she existed. Carolyn, Garrett said when he reached them. His voice was controlled, but she could hear the cracks underneath. The barely contained fury, the desperation. What are you doing here? This is a company event. You do not work here anymore. You do not belong here. She kept her voice pleasant, conversational, as if they were discussing the weather rather than the wreckage of their marriage. Garrett, she smiled. It was not a nice smile. You remember I used to work in tech before I gave it up to support your career, before I became furniture. This is insane, Garrett hissed. His veneer of control was cracking further. You are embarrassing yourself. In your condition, you should be at home, resting. The doctor said I should avoid stress, Carolyn interrupted, which is why I am here instead of sitting at home thinking about the custody motion you filed this morning. The one with the affidavit from my mother. The one where you claimed I was mentally unstable. Garrett's face went pale. He had not expected her to know about that yet. He had probably planned to let it blindside her tomorrow, after the gala, when he was safely basking in his victory. I do not know what you are talking about, he started. Donovan stepped forward, just slightly, just enough to make Garrett take an involuntary step back. His presence was commanding in a way that Garrett's never had been. The presence of a man who did not need to prove anything to anyone. Mr. Mitchell, Donovan said. His voice was calm, pleasant, utterly terrifying. I do not believe we have been formally introduced. I am Donovan Knight. You may have heard of me. You certainly tried to sell me some intellectual property last month. Property that, as it turns out, belongs to your wife. The color drained from Garrett's face so fast that Caroline thought he might faint. His mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. The deal is off, Donovan continued. Obviously, I do not buy stolen property. My lawyers will be in touch about the fraud charges. But tonight is not about business. Tonight, I am simply here as Caroline's guest. I believe she has something she wants to say to you. He stepped back slightly, giving Caroline the floor. The crowd had gathered now, drawn by the spectacle. She could see faces she recognized. Garrett's colleagues, his rivals, his boss, the CEO who had always treated Caroline like an afterthought at company events. All of them watching, all of them waiting. This was her moment, the moment she had imagined 1,000 times. Garrett, she said. Her voice was clear and strong. It carried in the sudden hush that had fallen over the ballroom. You told me I changed, that I was not interesting anymore, that I was boring and predictable, that I was furniture. She paused, let the silence stretch. Let every person in that room lean forward slightly, hungry for what came next. You were wrong. Another pause. She could feel Garrett's desperation radiating off him like heat. The woman you left was not boring, Carolyn continued. She was exhausted. Exhausted from carrying your weight for 12 years, from making you look good at events like this, from proofing your presentation at 2 in the morning and telling you they were brilliant when they were barely adequate, from giving up her own dreams so you could chase yours. Garrett opened his mouth to respond. She did not let him. The woman standing here tonight is different. The woman standing here is about to sign a $15 million licensing deal for the algorithm you tried to steal. The algorithm you dismissed as my cute little hobby. The algorithm that is going to change the world of cybersecurity. My algorithm, my work, my future. Gasps rippled through the crowd like wind through wheat. Garrett's face went from pale to red to something approaching purple. Caroline, he was almost pleading now, his voice cracking. You do not understand. I was going to share the money. I was going to. But here is the part you should really hear, Carolyn said, talking over him as if he had not spoken. I am not doing this because of you. I am not doing this to hurt you. I am not doing this for revenge. She stepped closer to him, close enough to see the sweat beading on his forehead, close enough to see the fear in his eyes. I am doing this because my daughter deserves a mother who knows her own worth, a mother who fights for what she has built, a mother who does not let anyone, not her husband, not her own mother, not anyone, tell her she is worthless. She straightened to her full height. Let him see exactly who he had underestimated. And you, Garrett, you are not even a footnote in our story. You are the cautionary tale I will tell her someday. The lesson about what happens when you mistake someone's kindness for weakness, when you mistake someone's love for stupidity, when you throw away something precious because you were too blind to see its value. She turned away from him. The crowd parted before her like the Red Sea. Donovan offered his arm and she took it, and together they walked toward the balcony, leaving Garrett Mitchell frozen in the wreckage of his own ambition. Behind them, the whisper started, building like a wave, like a tsunami that would sweep away everything Garrett had built. Did you see his face? $15 million for something he tried to steal. I always knew there was something off about him. That poor woman, what she must have been through. And Garrett Mitchell, who had come to the gala expecting his coronation, who had filed custody papers that morning, thinking he had finally found the weapon to break his wife, stood alone in the middle of the ballroom he had planned to conquer. His mistress had disappeared into the crowd, already calculating her exit strategy. His colleagues were avoiding eye contact, already distancing themselves from the coming disaster. His career was over, his reputation was destroyed, his schemes had collapsed like a house of cards in a hurricane, and his pregnant wife, the woman he had called furniture, walked away on the arm of a billionaire, her head held high, her future spread out before her like a golden road. She did not look back. She did not need to. His story was no longer part of hers. In the private alcove near the ballroom's edge, Brittany Monroe was having a crisis of faith. You told me she was nobody, she hissed at Garrett, her perfect makeup unable to hide the fury in her eyes. You told me she was a boring housewife who would take a settlement and disappear. You told me that patent was yours. It is mine, Garrett insisted. I will fix this. With what? Brittany's laugh was sharp, ugly. Donovan Knight just announced to everyone that you are a fraud. By tomorrow, This will be all over the business pages. You are done, Garrett, and I am not going down with you. Brittany, wait. I attached myself to a VP on his way up. Her eyes raked over him with contempt. A man with a future, with status. What are you now? You are the guy who got fired by his ex-wife in front of the entire industry. You are a story people are going to tell for laughs at Christmas parties. You have nothing. She turned and walked away. Her red dress cut through the crowd like a wound, and then she was gone, and Garrett was alone with the ruins of his perfect life. But the night was not done with him yet. Mr. Abernathy, the CEO of Innovate Solutions, materialized at his elbow. His face was a thundercloud. "Carter," he growled, "my office. First thing tomorrow morning." "Sir, this has nothing to do with work," Garrett started. "This is personal drama. It has no bearing on my performance." Abernathy let out a short, brutal laugh. "You think this is about your messy divorce, you idiot? You are so far out of your depth you are drowning, and you do not even know it." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "Knight Enterprises has been negotiating to acquire this company for months. A deal worth $300 million, and you just torpedoed it by trying to sell them stolen property. Your ex-wife is not just a scorned spouse. She is a strategic consultant who just handed me an analysis of every weakness in our organization, including you." Garrett felt the floor tilt beneath him. "The senior partnership," he managed. "Gone," Abernathy said. "Your job is gone. Your reputation is gone. By the time my lawyers are done, you will not be able to get hired selling vacuum cleaners door to door in this town. We are finished here." He walked away, leaving Garrett standing alone in the middle of the most important event of his career, watching everything he had built crumble to ash. On the balcony overlooking the city, Caroline allowed herself a moment to breathe. The lights spread out below her like a carpet of stars. The night air was cool on her skin. Inside, she could hear the murmur of conversation, the clink of glasses, the soft notes of the orchestra. She had won. It did not feel the way she expected. Footsteps behind her. She knew who it was without turning. "Caroline," Garrett said. His voice was different now, stripped of its arrogance, smaller. She turned to face him. He looked older somehow, diminished. The confident VP who had told her she was furniture seemed very far away. "Please," he said, "we can fix this. For the baby, for everything we built. I made mistakes, but I still love you. I still—" "Stop." The word hung between them. "Final." "You do not love me," Carolyn said. "You never did. You loved what I did it for you. You loved having a wife who made you look stable, who proofread your presentations and hosted your dinner parties, who let you shine. The moment I stopped being useful, I became disposable. That is not love, Garrett. That is inventory management." "What do you want?" he asked. "An apology. Money. Tell me what you want and I will—" "What I want is something you can never give me." Carolyn took a step closer. "I want those 12 years back. I want to tell that young woman who gave up her career for you to run. I want to not spend the rest of my life wondering what I could have built if I had not been so busy building you." Garrett's face crumpled. For a moment, he looked almost human. "But here is what I have learned," Carolyn continued. "You cannot get years back. You can only stop wasting the ones you have left. So here is what is going to happen. You are going to drop the custody motion. You are going to sign the divorce papers Maya sends you. You are going to accept whatever visitation rights I decide are appropriate for our daughter. And if I do not, then I release the evidence of your offshore accounts to the IRS, your fraud to the Patent Office, and your affair timeline to every gossip blog in the country. You will be broke, unemployable, and a punchline." She touched her belly. "Inside, the baby kicked. She kicks every time I stand up for myself," Caroline said. "I think she is cheering me on." She walked back inside, leaving Garrett alone on the balcony with the wreckage of his ambition. Behind her, she did not see him sink onto the stone bench, did not see him put his head in his hands, did not see the first tears he had cried in 20 years. She did not need to. His story was no longer part of hers. The months that followed the gala were not a sudden transformation into a perfect life. Real change, Carolyn learned, happened slowly, brick by brick, choice by choice. Garrett dropped the custody motion 3 days after the gala. His lawyers advised him that pursuing it would only lead to the exposure of his financial fraud. He signed the divorce papers Maya sent. He accepted the visitation schedule Carolyn proposed. He saw his daughter when she was born for exactly 2 hours. He held her awkwardly, like she was something fragile and foreign. He did not cry. He did not apologize. He simply handed her back and said he needed to make some calls. Carolyn named her Grace. The licensing deal with Knight Enterprises closed 6 weeks after the gala. $15 million deposited into an account that bore only Caroline's name. 8% royalties on all products using her algorithm in perpetuity. But more important than the money was what came after. Donovan offered her a position at Knight Enterprises, Chief Strategy Officer for their new cybersecurity division. It was not a gift. It was recognition of her abilities. A seat at a table she had earned. She took it. The first year was brutal. Carolyn was learning to be a single mother, a corporate executive, and herself all at the same time. There were nights when Grace would not stop crying, and Carolyn had board presentations the next morning. Days when she wondered if she was sacrificing one thing for another, just like before, just in a different direction. But there were also moments of pure, unexpected joy. Grace's first smile, her first word, which was "Ma," the first time Caroline closed a deal worth more than Garrett's entire career. Maya was there through all of it. So was Marcus. They became her chosen family, the people who showed up without being asked and stayed without being begged. Donovan was there too. Their relationship evolved slowly, carefully. He never pushed, never presumed. He was simply present in ways that Garrett never had been. It was almost a year after the gala when Caroline finally understood what had really happened. She was sitting in her new office, overlooking the city she had once watched from Garrett's shadow. Grace was in the company daycare downstairs. The Mitchell-Larson protocol was being implemented in systems across 3 continents. And Caroline Mitchell, who had once been told she was furniture, was running a division worth more than everything Garrett had ever touched. Her phone buzzed. "Maya, turn on the business news," Maya said. "You are going to want to see this." Carolyn turned to the screen mounted on her wall. A financial news channel was running a segment on corporate fraud. And there, in a photograph that accompanied the story, was Garrett Mitchell, being led out of an office building by federal agents. The IRS had finally caught up with his offshore accounts. Caroline watched for a moment, then she turned off the screen. She felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication. Just a quiet sense of closure, like a book being placed back on a shelf. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Donovan. "Dinner tonight?" ? "Grace is welcome." She smiled and typed back, "Yes." Then she turned back to her work. There was a future to build. 5 years later, Carolyn stood on the rooftop garden of Mitchell Security Systems headquarters, watching the sunset over the city. The company bore her name now, not just the algorithm. The entire division had been spun off into its own entity, with Caroline as CEO and majority stakeholder. Donovan had insisted, "Your work," he had said, "your name." They were married now, a small ceremony on a beach in the Caribbean, with only Maya, Marcus, and Grace in attendance. No photographers, no gossip columns, just family. Grace ran up behind her, 5 years old, and full of the kind of boundless energy that made Caroline grateful for coffee and patient nannies. "Mommy," Grace said, "look what I made." She held up a drawing. A woman in a blue dress standing on top of a building. A cape flew behind her. "Who is this?" Carolyn asked, kneeling down to Grace's level. "It is you, Mommy. You are a superhero." Carolyn felt tears prick her eyes. The unexpected kind, the good kind. "You know what, baby? Maybe I am. Maybe we all are. We just have to remember to fly." Grace's face scrunched up in that way it did when she was thinking hard. "Mommy," she said seriously, "people cannot really fly." Carolyn laughed and pulled her daughter close. "No," she agreed, "but we can do something better. We can help each other up." They stood together, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Below them, the city hummed with life, with possibility, with all the futures that had not been written yet. Grace tugged at Caroline's sleeve. "Mommy, can I ask you something?" "Of course, baby. Why do I not see Daddy more?" Caroline took a breath. This was a question she had been expecting, preparing for, dreading. Your daddy loves you, she said carefully. But sometimes grown-ups make choices that mean they cannot be around as much as they want to be. It is not your fault. It is not about you at all. Sometimes people just choose different paths. Grace considered this, like when you choose the chocolate ice cream and I choose the strawberry. Carolyn smiled through the ache in her chest. Something like that, yes. But we can still share, right? You let me taste your chocolate. We can still share, Carolyn agreed, always. Grace nodded, satisfied with this answer, in the way only children can be satisfied, completely and without reservation. Mommy, she said, I am glad you are my mommy. I am glad too, baby. So glad. They watched the sunset together. Mother and daughter, survivor and hope, past and future, standing side by side on the roof of everything Caroline had built from the ashes of everything she had lost. 10 years after the gala that changed everything, Caroline Mitchell Knight sat in the living room of her home and watched her daughter do homework at the kitchen table. Grace was 15 now, brilliant and stubborn, and so much like Caroline had been at that age, it sometimes took her breath away. She had her father's eyes, but everything else was pure Mitchell. The determination, the curiosity, the refusal to be underestimated. Mom, Grace said without looking up, can you help me with this calculus problem? Something is not working. Carolyn set down her tablet and walked over, looked at the equation, spotted the error immediately. You dropped a negative sign in the third step, she said. Right here. Grace groaned. I hate negative signs. They are so sneaky. Caroline laughed. They are, but once you learn to watch for them, they cannot trick you anymore. Grace fixed the problem. Then she looked up, her expression suddenly serious. Mom, she said, can I ask you something? About Dad. Caroline's heart did a familiar clench. Of course. Why does he always cancel on me? Like, I get that he is busy or whatever, but he canceled my birthday last year and the year before, and I am starting to think it is not about being busy. Carolyn sat down across from her daughter. This was the conversation she had known would come eventually, the one she could not protect Grace from forever. Your father, she said slowly, loves you in his way, but he has spent most of his life running from things that are hard, from responsibility, from commitment, from the work it takes to show up for people day after day, even when it is inconvenient. Grace's jaw tightened. That is a really nice way of saying he does not care enough to try. I think he cares. Carolyn chose her words carefully, but caring and doing are different things. And I have learned that you cannot judge people by what they feel. You have to judge them by what they do, by whether they show up. Is that why you and Donovan work? Because he shows up. Caroline smiled. That is part of it, yes. He shows up. Every day. For the big things and the small things. For the boring things and the hard things. He does not promise more than he can deliver, but he delivers everything he promises. That is what love actually looks like, Grace. Not grand gestures. Consistency. Grace was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Mom, I am not going to be like him. Like who? Like Dad. She looked up and her eyes were fierce. I am going to be like you. I am going to build things. And when I make promises to people, I am going to keep them. Carolyn reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. You already are, she said. You already are like me. The best parts anyway. And the parts of you that are different, that are uniquely Grace, those are even better. That night, after Grace had gone to bed, Caroline stood on the balcony of their home and looked out at the city. Donovan came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. Deep thoughts, he asked. She leaned back into him, just thinking about how strange life is. 10 years ago, I was crying on a bathroom floor, convinced my life was over. Now I have this, all of this, a company, a family, a daughter who told me today she wants to be like me when she grows up. Well, Donovan said, she has excellent taste. Carolyn laughed softly. I spent so many years trying to be what Garrett wanted. And the whole time I already had everything I needed. I just could not see it. That is the thing about being in the middle of your own story, Donovan said. You cannot see the shape of it. You cannot know that the worst chapter is setting up the best one. When did you get so philosophical? I have had a good teacher. They stood together in comfortable silence. Below them, the city sparkled with lights, with lives being lived, with stories being written. "Donovan," Carolyn said eventually, "thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me when I could not see myself, for believing I was worth the investment when I had forgotten how to believe in anything." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "You were never the investment, Caroline. You were always the dividend. I just showed up early." She turned in his arms, kissed him properly. Around them, the night wrapped the city in darkness and possibility. Somewhere out there, a woman was crying on a bathroom floor. Somewhere, a marriage was ending. Somewhere, a story was beginning. And Caroline Mitchell Knight, who had once been called furniture, who had once been told she was boring and predictable and not enough, stood in the life she had built from the ashes of the one she had lost. She was proof of something. Not that revenge is sweet, although sometimes it is. Not that karma comes for everyone, although sometimes it does. But something simpler, something more powerful, that you can survive what you think will destroy you. That the woman you bury is not dead, just sleeping. That the quietest person in the room often has the loudest story if you just give her time to tell it. Carolyn Mitchell. Knight had been underestimated. She had been dismissed, she had been left, and she had risen. Not because she was special, not because she was lucky, but because she had refused to let anyone else write the ending of her story. She had written it herself. And that is the story of Caroline Mitchell, a woman who was called furniture, a woman who was told she was boring, a woman whose own mother betrayed her, and a woman who refused to stay broken. If this story touched your heart, if you have ever been underestimated, if you have ever felt invisible in your own life, I want you to do something for me. Hit that like button. Not for me. For every woman who has ever been told she was not enough. For every woman who gave everything to someone who gave nothing back. For every woman who is still fighting her way back from rock bottom. Drop a comment below. Tell me, have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever had to rebuild your life from nothing? Your story matters. I want to hear it. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Someone who is going through their own battle. Someone who needs to know that survival is possible. And if you have not already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we have so many more stories like this one. Stories of women who refuse to give up. Stories of karma delivered. Stories of justice that will make your heart sing. Remember this, you are not furniture. You are not boring. You are not invisible. You are powerful beyond measure. And anyone who cannot see that is not worth your time. Until next time, stay strong, keep fighting, and never, ever let anyone tell you what you are worth.